When you can't lean over the fence to ask your neighbor a question, how do you get information in a new anchorage? Well, Cruisers Net, of course. It's the way for cruisers to stay in touch. Hi there, I'm Carolyn Sherlock, and on this episode of the Boat Galley Podcast, I'll share what every newbie, and even a few experienced cruisers, need to know about Cruisers Nets, how to find them, and how to use them. First, let's talk about another great source of info if you're cruising the ICW, Bahamas, or Florida. Yeah, it's the Boat Galley's Cruising Guides, designed to help you find the best location for everything you need. Whether it's an anchorage with protection from forecast wind direction, fuel, water, pump out, name of the next bridge, its height when it opens, or how to call it, tons of other things. Now, these aren't traditional cruising guides with all the history and information on one place at a time. No, they're designed from the ground up to provide quick answers to all your where questions. I mean, you need to do laundry. Do you really want to read all the details of 4 different towns just to find a laundromat versus take about 10 seconds and hours to go down the list of locations with laundries? Okay, get a copy today in the Boat Galley store or on Amazon. They're available both in print and a PDF, so if you're somewhere where you can't get mail, you can still get a copy. The PDF is only in the store. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Cruisers Nets. If you read much about cruising, sooner or later you're going to be hearing about the Cruisers Nets. But what exactly is it and how do you join in? Okay, most popular cruising harbors have a local VHF net, and if you have a single sideband or a ham radio aboard, you'll find some Cruisers Nets there too. Generally, they take place every day, same place, and on the same channel. Although some ham and single sideband nets do have a primary frequency and one or more backups that are used when propagation changes due to the season of the year or sunspot activity. Every net has its own personality, but in general, they're a way for cruisers to connect with each other, get information, and help and provide whatever they can to each other. In places with limited internet, weather forecast may be a prominent feature. Others might focus on local knowledge in the form of where to buy such and such questions, what's happening in town. Offshore nets usually focus on check-ins and helping with problems such as boats, weather, medical problems, whatever's going on. By the way, don't think that nets are just for boat owners. Listen in when you're chartering to get the local scoop and ask questions about the best local places too. Okay, local topics covered. Most nets follow a reasonably set order of topics. They don't all hit all of the topics. Every net has its own order. Generally, you'll find that there's a welcome and a brief overview of what will be covered. That's really helpful if you're new to the net. There'll be a call for any emergency traffic, such as health, boat problems, etc. This is the equivalent of basically of calling 911, not for minor items at this point, but for true priority items as the emergency traffic. There'll be weather and tides. In some places, there'll be check-ins by all listeners, or it'll be just new arrivals and departing boats only. There'll be announcements such as cruiser activities, local events, astronomy such as meteor showers tonight. You might see the space station, whatever. Volunteer opportunities, and so on. Usually, this is not the place for items for sale. The next thing typically is help needed, smaller stuff that's not a true emergencies, such as troubleshooting a mechanical problem, needing a ride to shore. Where can I buy such and such? Can you recommend a local dock? Things like that. Then there'll be a buy, sell, trade, giveaway section. Now, note that some countries do not allow foreigners to sell items, so listen carefully when you're in a new locale and ask if you don't know. Sometimes you can only give stuff away. It's a great way to find good used gear and sell items that you don't need. And then there's usually a closing. Oftentimes there's anything that's been missed, you can go ahead and ask it again. Well, if you forgot at a certain time. Most nets welcome participation, so don't feel nervous about joining in. Few notes to make your first time easier. Almost all cruisers now report control nets, which simply means that there's a net controller each day who acts as sort of a master of ceremonies. When you want to talk, you do the net equivalent of raising your hand. You state your name, which is basically your boat name. Sometimes on SSB or Hamnets, it'll be your call signs. Some of those also use boat names, just to see what other people are doing. Then when you're recognized in radio language, well done for most of us, you just say what you want to do. Radio networks call this passing your traffic. Some nets are more tightly controlled than others, wanting you to be recognized before every transmission, even in an ongoing discussion. You can see what happens in the particular net that you're listening to if once you've kind of got the floor, you and someone else can keep talking, or if you need to get recognized every time. Background noise. That's going to be a real problem. If you're going to speak, it's common courtesy to turn off sources of background noise. Generators can produce quite a bit of electrical interference as well as simple noise. Other radios and stereos should be turned off. Single sideband and ham radios can be affected by any fluorescent lights, refrigerator compressors, engines, wind turbines, and so forth. If people tell you that you've got some interference, just start turning things off and see what happens. Now, radio nets work best when one person talks at a time, and they create a jumbled mess when more than one person tries to talk at a time. Boats near one talker will only hear that one, while boats near the other will only hear that one. And in the middle, people just hear gobbledygook. Don't always rush to be the first to speak when a category opens up. Take a breath, make sure the air is clear, then say your boat name and wait to be called on. Pro tip here. Be sure to press transmit before you start talking, not as you are starting to talk. Otherwise, the first syllable or two will be cut off. So press it, then talk. Many times, a topic will be of interest only to a limited number of people, or will take a lot of time to explore in detail. Often the net controller or one of the participants will make a suggestion to continue the conversation after the net. On a VHF net, that usually means suggesting an alternate channel so as not to clog up the local hailing channel, but then everybody who's interested in the topic goes to that channel right after the net. Okay, how can you break in? If you've got a true emergency in the middle of the net and you need help, wait for a pause and then call break, break, followed by your boat name. When called on, explain what's happening. Break, break is for serious emergencies only. Maybe not quite the level of a mayday or call to 911, but close. Otherwise, just the phrase break. If you're trying to be heard in a conversation, you can use that then. Break, break is very specific for emergencies. If two people are talking about something and you can't get a word in edgewise, that's when you use the word as the single break. Okay, finding nets. By far the easiest way to find out the local time and channel for the VHF nets is generally to just get on VHF, whatever the local to hailing channel is, usually 16, and ask. Cruising guides, active captains sometimes list nets, but not often, and the information can be outdated. Finding single sideband and ham nets can be a little bit tougher. Generally, if you Google, that will be the most help. Something like single sideband nets or SSB nets Mexico, for example. Facebook groups are also a good place. Anyways, cruisers nets are truly one of the great things about the cruising community. I urge you to get involved with them. And as you start getting familiar, go ahead and volunteer to be one of the net controllers. It is easy and it's a wonderful way to give back to the community. Okay, that's it for this episode of the Boat Galley Podcast, where we try to make your boat life better. Please, if you found this helpful, subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Tell your friends, leave reviews, do cartwheels down the street telling everybody about us, whatever you want to do. We love it. Thanks a lot.